The Twelfth is an Ulster Protestant celebration held on July 12 each year. It originated during the 18th century in Ulster, a province of Ireland that was heavily colonised by Protestant settlers from Britain. It celebrates the glorious revolution and victory of Protestant King William of Orange over Catholic King James II at the Battle of the Boyne, which helped ensure Protestant supremacy in Ireland. On and around the 12th, large parades are held by the Orange Order and Ulster loyalist marching bands, streets are bedecked with British flags and bunting, and large towering bonfires are lit. Today the 12th is mainly celebrated in Northern Ireland, but smaller celebrations are held in other parts of the world where Orange lodges have been set up. The 12th involves thousands of participants and spectators, although not all Ulster Protestants celebrate it. In Ulster, where about half the population is from a Protestant background and half from a Catholic background, the 12th has been accompanied by violence from both communities since its beginning. Many Catholics and Irish nationalists see the Orange Order and its marches as sectarian, triumphalist and supremacist. The Order is also politically a unionist and Ulster loyalist organisation. Violence related to the 12th in Northern Ireland worsened during the 30-year ethno-political conflict known as the Troubles. The Drumcree conflict is perhaps the most well-known dispute involving Orange marches. Attempts have recently been made to downplay the political aspects of the marches and present the 12th as a cultural, family-friendly event at which tourists are welcome. Although most events pass off peacefully, some continue to result in violence from both sides. Origins. Orangemen commemorated several events dating from the 17th century onwards, celebrating the survival of Protestantism during the Irish Rebellion of 1641 and triumph in the Williamite War in Ireland. The first such commemoration was the anniversary of the 1641 rebellion on October 23, an attempted coup d'état by Irish Catholic gentry who tried to seize control of the English administration in Ireland. The second major day was the birthday of William of Orange, Protestant victor of the Williamite War in the 1690s on November 4. Both of these anniversaries faded in popularity by the end of the 18th century. The 12th itself originated as a celebration of the Battle of Boyne, which took place on July 12, 1691 in the Julian calendar. Boyne was the decisive battle of the Williamite War, in which the predominantly Irish Catholic Jacobite army was destroyed and the remainder capitulated at Limerick. The 12th in the early 18th century was a popular commemoration of this battle, featuring bonfires and parades. The Battle of the Boyne was commemorated with smaller parades on July 1. However, the two events were combined in the late 18th century. The first reason for this was the British switch to the Gregorian calendar in 1752, which repositioned the Battle of the Boyne to July 11 in the new calendar, the eve of the Battle of Boyne, on July 12 in the old calendar. The second reason was the foundation of the Orange Order in 1795. The order preferred the Boyne, due to William of Orange's presence there. It has also been suggested that in the 1790s the Boyne, where the Jacobites were rooted, was more appealing to the order than Boyne, where they had fought hard and died in great numbers. The Order's first ever marches took place on July 12, 1796 in Portadown, Lurgan and Erringtown. The 12th parades of the early 19th century often led to public disorder, so much so that the Orange Order and the 12th were banned in the 1830s and 40s. Events lead up to the 12th. In the weeks leading up to the 12th, the Orange Order and Ulster Loyalist marching bands hold numerous parades in Northern Ireland. The most common of these are lodge parades, in which one Orange Lodge marches with one band. Others, such as the Mini 12th at the start of July, involve several lodges. From June to August, Protestant, Unionist and Loyalist areas of Northern Ireland are bedecked with flags and bunting, which are usually flown from lamp posts and houses. The most common flags flown are the Union Jack and Ulster banner. Curbstones may be painted red, white and blue and murals may be made. Steel or wooden arches, bedecked with flags and orange symbolism, are raised over certain streets. These orange arches are inspired by triumphal arches. As well as the Union Jack and Ulster banner, The flags of illegal loyalist paramilitaries are such as the Ulster Volunteer Force and Ulster Defence Association are flown in some areas. The raising of these flags near Catholic and Irish nationalist neighbourhoods, or in neutral areas, often leads to tension and sometimes violence. It is seen as deliberately provocative and intimidating. 11th night. On the night before the 12th or the 11th night huge towering bonfires are lit in many Protestant, Unionist and Loyalist areas of Northern Ireland. In many of these areas the bonfires are seen as family-friendly community celebrations. However, not all Protestants attend the bonfires and people from the Irish Catholic community avoid them, as they have been associated with sectarianism and alcohol-fueled violence. Effigies and symbols of the Irish nationalist and Irish Catholic community are often burnt on the fires. More recently, symbols of the large Polish immigrant community have been burnt on the fires, which the Polish Association of Northern Ireland has described as racist intimidation. Loyalist paramilitaries have also used the event to hold shows of strength, in which masked gunmen fire volleys of shots into the air. Another issue that has been raised is the environmental pollution, as tyres are often burnt. However, in recent years, there have been attempts to make the bonfires more family-friendly and environmentally friendly. Main events. The main way in which the 12th is celebrated is through large parades involving Orangemen and supporting bands. Most of the parades are in Northern Ireland, though Orange lodges elsewhere often hold parades too. The parade usually begins at an Orange Hall, proceeds through the town or city and out to a large park or field where the marchers, their friends and family, and the general public gather to eat, drink and listen to speeches by clergymen, politicians and senior members of the order. In the past the 12th has been a major venue for discussion of the political issues of the day. A church service will also be held and sometimes band prizes will be awarded. Within Northern Ireland, each district lodge usually organises its own parade. In rural districts the parade will rotate around various towns, sometimes favouring those in which there is less likely to be trouble, but in other years choosing those in which it is felt the right to march needs to be defended. In Northern Ireland, there is a long tradition of Protestant and Loyalist marching bands, which can be found in most towns. The Orangemen hire these bands to march with them on the 12th. The bands have a reputation as being less respectable than the Orangemen, although they are seen by many as serving the useful purpose of keeping young men from working-class areas out of trouble. An instrument almost unique to these marches is the lambeg drum. Popular songs include The Sash and Derry's Walls. Explicitly violent songs such as Billy Boys may also be played. The vast majority of marchers are men, but there are some all-women bands and a few mixed bands. Some all-male bands have female flag or banner carriers. There are also some women's Orange lodges who take part in the parades. Orange women have paraded on the 12th in some rural areas since at least the mid-20th century, but were banned from the Belfast parades until the 1990s. Orangemen on parade typically wear a dark suit, an orange sash, white gloves and a bowler hat. Certain Orangemen carry a ceremonial sword. In hot weather, many lodges will parade in short-sleeved shirts. Orange women have not developed a standard dress code, but usually dress formally. The supporting bands each have their own uniforms and colours. Both the Orangemen and bands carry elaborate banners depicting Orange heroes, historic or biblical scenes, and/or political symbols and slogans. The most popular image is that of King William of Orange crossing the River Boyne during the famous battle. At the field, some lodges and bands don humorous outfits or accessories and make the return journey in them, and the mood is generally more mellow, although in times of tension it can also be more aggressive. The Northern Ireland parades are given extensive local TV and press coverage, and the BBC programme The 12th is the longest-running outside broadcast programme in Northern Ireland. Controversies and violence. In Northern Ireland, where almost half the population is from an Irish Catholic background, the 12th is a tense time. Orange marches through Irish Catholic and Irish nationalist neighbourhoods are usually met with opposition from residents, and this sometimes leads to violence. Many of them see such marches as sectarian, triumphalist, supremacist, and an assertion of British and Ulster Protestant dominance. The political aspects have caused further tension. Marchers insist that they have the right to celebrate their culture and walk on public streets, particularly along their traditional routes. In a 2011 survey of Orangemen throughout Northern Ireland, 58% of Orangemen said they should be allowed to march through Catholic or Irish nationalist areas with no restrictions. 20% said they should negotiate with residents first. Some have argued that members of both communities once participated in the event. Although it has always been a Protestant affair and many Catholics oppose the marches, violence has accompanied Twelfth marches since their beginning. On July 12, 1797, 8 Catholic members of the County Kerry militia died in a clash with Orangemen in local yeomanry in Stewartstown. Clashes broke out between Orange marchers and Irish nationalists in Belfast on July 12, 1813. Several Orangemen opened fire on the crowd in Hercules Street, killing 2 Protestants and wounding 4 other people. On July 12, 1829, 8 people were killed during Orange marches in Enniskillen, 7 were killed in Clones and 1 was killed in Stewartstown. In Maghera, several Catholic homes were burnt down, prompting the intervention of the military. There was also trouble at marches in Armagh, Portadown, Bellaghy, Coma, Greabbey, Gleno and Strabane. 5 Catholics were reportedly shot dead in Rathfriland and 3 or 4 were drowned in the river near Catisbridge after 12th marches in 1831. The following August, all 12th marches were banned by the Party Processions Act. This act was to be enforced for 5 years, until August 1837. The military used 6 pieces of artillery to help quell trouble at a 12th gathering at Scarva in 1836. A gun battle broke out on the 12th in 1849, when Orangemen marched through the rural Catholic community of Dolly's Brae near Castlewellan. Orangemen clashed with Catholic Raboumen, leaving a number of Catholics and Raboumen dead. This became known as the Battle of Dolly's Brae. As a result of the clashes, the Party Processions Act was renewed the following year. Following the 1857 12th marches in Belfast, sectarian rioting erupted in the city and lasted for 10 days. The Portadown News reported that 16 Catholics were shot by Orangemen in Derrymacash on July 12, 1860. 1 died of his wounds. Stone throwing had broken out when the Orangemen tried to march past the Catholic chapel. Outnumbered, some of the Orangemen opened fire on the Catholics and retreated. This led to the passing of the Party Emblems Act in August that year, which forbade the carrying of weapons and the wearing of party colours in procession. There were clashes 2 years in a row during 12th marches in New York City. In 1870, 8 people died in the clashes. In 1871, over 60 civilians and 3 guardsmen lost their lives and over 150 were wounded. Throughout the summer of 1886, there were a string of riots in Belfast. Violence was particularly fierce during and after the 12th. By September, an estimated 31 people had been killed. In 1935 the 12th led to the worst violence in Belfast since the foundation of Northern Ireland in 1922. The violence allegedly began when Orangemen tried to enter the Catholic enclave of Lancaster Street. 9 people were killed and 514 Catholic families, comprising 2,241 people, were forced to flee their homes. During the Troubles, the 12th was often accompanied by riots and paramilitary violence. In 1972, 3 people were shot dead on the 12th in Portadown. On the 12th in 1998, during the Drumcree standoff, 3 young boys were killed when loyalists firebombed their house in Ballymoney. The boys' mother was a Catholic, and their home was in a mainly Protestant housing estate. The killings provoked widespread anger from both sides of the community. Since the Troubles began, some bands hired to appear at 12th marches have openly shown support for loyalist paramilitary groups either by carrying paramilitary flags and banners or sporting paramilitary names and emblems. A number of prominent loyalist militants were Orangemen and took part in their marches. In February 1992, the Loyalist Ulster Defence Association shot dead 5 Catholic civilians in a betting shop in Belfast. When Orangemen marched past the shop that July 12, some marchers held up 5 fingers in mockery of the 5 dead. The Secretary of State, Patrick Mayhew, said that they would have disgraced a tribe of cannibals. Every 12th between 1970 and 2005, British Army soldiers were deployed in Belfast to help police the parades. Due to improved policing, dialogue between marchers and residents, and the Northern Ireland peace process, parades have been generally more peaceful since the 2000s. The Parades Commission was set up in 1998 to deal with contentious parades. During the Troubles, some Irish Catholic and nationalist areas organised festivals to keep their children away from the parades, where they might come into conflict with Protestant children, and to make the 12th more enjoyable for their communities. The 12th outside Northern Ireland. Although mostly a Northern Ireland event, the 12th is also celebrated in other countries with strong links to Ulster or a history of settlement by Irish Protestants. Outside of Northern Ireland, the 12th is widely commemorated in Scotland, particularly in and around Glasgow, where most Scots-Irish traditionally settled. In England and Wales, Orange marches are uncommon and Orange Order membership is found primarily in the Merseyside region, though numbers are still small. Marches here tend to be held a week or so before the 12th, due to the number of bands and lodges who travel to Northern Ireland to march there. The Liverpool Lodges parade both in the city and in the seaside resort of Southport on the 12th July. There are also 12 marches in Canada and Australia. As the longest consecutively held parade in North America, the 12th March was the largest parade in Toronto until the 1970s, when thousands of Orangemen would march in front of tens of thousands of spectators. At the time, the Orange Order held such sway that membership in the Orange Order was an unspoken prerequisite for holding civic office. However, the march's popularity has drastically diminished in recent years, as only about 500 people participate in modern Orange parades, making its size a mere fraction of other parades in Toronto such as Carnival, Calza Day, and Gay Pride. 12th parades were also common in eastern Ontario and the Niagara region, which were heavily populated by descendants of loyalists from the American colonies who fled after American independence. Orangemen's Day is still a significant holiday in the Canadian province of Newfoundland and Labrador, where it is an official provincial paid holiday. Parades were also formally held in New Zealand on the 12th. Until the partition of Ireland, the 12th was celebrated by Protestants in many parts of Ireland, but the shrinking of the Protestant population in what is now the Republic of Ireland has greatly lessened the number held. The only remaining yearly parade is in Rossnola and was held on the 12th until the 1970s, when it was moved to the weekend before. In July 2010, former Tarnaist Michael McDowell said that the 12th should be made a national holiday in the Republic of Ireland as well as in Northern Ireland. See also, parades in Northern Ireland, banners in Northern Ireland, Orange Walk, Culture of Ireland, references. External links, the 12th in Pictures, BBC News, July 12, 2006, Gallery Orange Chronicle, North Belfast Parade passes peacefully. RTA Pamel News, July 12, 2006.